Hello, folks. Welcome to Dangerous Ideas. I'm Lee Kemp, joined by Eleanor Goldfield.
It's common censored, but
okay. Oh yeah, well, it's Dangerous Ideas on Fridays. We do common censored, but yes, it's both those things. Common censored. If you're looking for the podcast of this show, it's called Common Censored. Folks, we got a big show for you. Obviously, a massive ICJ ruling that just came down, rocking the world. Although we'll discuss whether it really rocks the world or not. But it is a big decision. We'll be covering that. We'll be covering the UK efforts we now know from classified documents to bring down journalist John Pilger. We'll be covering a new execution method that's
it's actually not new.
Well, yeah, not new, just horrific, that one U.S. state is involved in using. A lot of important stories. We might get to a massive court decision for Uber and Lyft employees. Anyway, all that's coming up. Please make sure to hit subscribe, hit share, hit thumbs up, all that good stuff. And let's do it. Do you want to start by walking us through? I'll put it up on the screen. What exactly this ICJ ruling found?
Yeah, so basically, in case anybody's been under a rock recently, South Africa brought a case of genocide against Israel to the ICJ. Now, just really quick, I want to make the distinction between the ICJ and the ICC. I've done this on Project Censored, but for those who didn't hear that, the ICC is the International Criminal Court, and that is a court that does have the power to arrest people. And it's only been around since like 1998. And it, out of the 51, I believe, defendants, only 2 are non-African. So you can kind of see like the colonialist, leanings, one might say, of the ICC. The ICJ is known as the World Court, and that is the court of the UN. So as such, it has no specific enforcement mechanisms, and it does not go after individuals, but rather state apparatuses.
Right, that's a big difference. In ICC, you'll see them going after individuals, whereas ICJ is about one state versus another usually.
So anyway, just to clear that up. Now, the ICJ can also then trigger a ICC court case. So that's something that could happen. But right now we're just talking about the ICJ.
Also can trigger an STD at times, but let's continue.
I think Israel is an STD. So basically, the ICJ issued an interim ruling. Now, the official ruling could take years, which is also unhelpful. But this is an interim ruling where basically its findings say that, yeah, there's merit to this case being brought by South Africa of genocide against Israel. And
because, well, we'll get more into this, but what Israel would have wanted and the U.S. would have wanted is for it to be thrown out completely.
Right.
Just there is no case of genocide here. So the interim ruling decides whether there is a case of genocide to even go forward with. Anyway.
So as this post points out by Suleiman Ahmed, the votes were pretty remarkably in favor of South Africa. 15-2 was the vote for the state of Israel shall take all measures to prevent the commission of genocide to Gaza. 15-2 on the count, the state of Israel shall ensure that the military not commit any act of genocide. A little late, but whatever. 16-1 on the count of Israel shall take all measures to punish all public solicitations to genocide. 16-1 on the case Israel shall take immediate and effective measures to address adverse conditions to life in the Gaza Strip. 15-2 on the case Israel shall take effective measures to preserve evidence of actions impacting the Genocide Convention. That's the UN Genocide Convention. And finally, 15-2 on the case Israel shall submit to the court a report. All measures taken to follow the orders of this court within 1 month. Now, as some folks have pointed out, specifically Ali Abunima pointed out on Twitter recently that this is not about what Israel will do. Quote, Israel will ignore any ruling. This is about forcing the rest of the world to take seriously their obligations to stop an entity now officially accused of genocide with the world's highest court. And this is what I've also been talking about this, is that the ICJ doesn't have, because it's part of the UN, it doesn't have any enforcement power, so it can't force Israel to stop. The ICJ is really about shifting international opinion and perspective on this. And so that is where the hope, or the not really hope, but power supposedly of the ICJ. It's not in, like, don't expect to wake up tomorrow and be like, well, Biden decided to listen to the ICJ. That's not how this works.
But can I just point out, so you just read each of the decisions, which was 15-2, Israel should do this, 15-2, Israel should do this, 15-2, Israel should do this. Basically, the entirety of the decision says that there is enough there of proof that Israel's committing genocide for this to go forward, and for 15 out of the 17 to vote essentially that it is happening, that genocide is happening over and over again. And yet, here is the Wall Street Journal's headline, I think. What? It keeps doing this where it's not showing me every option.
I wish I could help.
Okay. World Court rejects demands for Gaza ceasefire. That's what the Wall Street Journal came out of that entire decision, is just World Court rejects demand for ceasefire.
So interestingly, this is like a really powerful media literacy moment. But like, so you read that and you think, oh, wow, the World Court sided with Israel. But that's not true.
By the way, I've tried to put that image up twice. I can't get it to go.
Forget it. Yeah. If you all want to follow, it's at Ali, ALI, Abunimah, AB as in boy, UNIMAH on Twitter. And he tweeted this out. He points out, a ceasefire is what you demand in an armed conflict. In a genocide, you demand an immediate end to all genocidal acts. And that is exactly what the ICJ ordered, with immediate effect. So he points out that even calling it a cease, like the ceasefire aspect wasn't ruled upon, is misleading, because it's not something that they would have been likely to do anyway. Because it's kind of like the catch-22. Like, if you agree that there's evidence of genocide, then you wouldn't call for a ceasefire, you call for an end of genocide.
Right. And he makes a great point that when you say someone's committing genocide, you don't just say like, hey, just maybe stop with as many bombs. Just don't fire as much. Well, wait, we're still cutting off the water, cutting off the food, cutting off the medical supplies, keeping them in an open air prison, and hoping disease finishes the job. Like, it's when you don't say ceasefire, you demand no more genocide. You demand get the hell out and stop oppressing these people and killing them.
So, and with that, also somebody on Twitter, as at the Gazan girl pointed out, her name is Lara. The ICJ effectively put all states on formal notice of the serious risk of genocide in Gaza, which triggers states' duty to take concrete steps to prevent genocide, meaning not funding or arming Israel. And the failure to do so will be used against them. Now, exactly how that would be used against them is, of course, a question. And how states view their quote unquote duty to the UN and the International Court of Justice. Those are of course, questions. But again, like, understanding where the World Court interim ruling exists will help us not place too much weight on it in terms of hoping that the World Court stops the genocide, because they don't actually have any power to do so. And I would also just like to point out that it was the UN in November 1947 that created Israel in the first place. So, like, the amount to which we should even be like putting our hopes and aspirations into the UN is like, that should be a very limited amount. But again, shifting the international perspective on this issue, that's important. It is vital to have something like the World Court be like, yeah, genocide is a thing that is absolutely viable in terms of what's happening in Gaza. And so people can no longer just say like, oh, it's just these crazy Hamas apologists calling it genocide. It's like, no, dude, the World Court said so. And that does carry weight.
And this is legitimizing what so many have already believed around the world, which is this is genocide. And you have support for Israel collapsing around the world, decreasing to the tune in some nations of 40%. Change from pre-October 7th to after. So you have support for Israel collapsing around the world economically. It is very troublesome to Israel. And this just furthers the understanding as a global population that this is a genocide. It's over 26,000. I didn't say this at the top of the show, that have now been murdered in Gaza by the Israeli military. 26,000 murdered. It's actually over 100,000 that have either been murdered, missing, or wounded. And of course, destroying the health systems is part of the design so that those who are wounded will ultimately die from their wounds. But 100,000, 70% of which are women and children, 43% of which are children. It's just totally unbelievable. And this just furthers the understanding of the world that this is genocide. And then there's the Biden administration's response to it, which is kind of hilarious. I actually put myself through the press briefing on
I
this.
conveniently had an interview right when this was happening, so I didn't have to.
Yeah, I put myself through the. Yeah, I think you made up an interview. But Carl McCarlson just called. He's trying to say things. Yeah. But I watched the interview with Kirby, which is a great name.
Come on, it legit sounds like it's from like a Roadrunner cartoon.
It is. Kirby, the spokesperson for the National Security Council. But the Biden administration is trying to have it both ways. They're saying one thing they've said multiple times is, well, it shows that the ICJ basically agrees with what we've said, that Israel should take steps to minimize harm to civilians. And the ICJ is just saying the same thing. It's like, yeah, but douchebags, you guys are also arming the genocide. You are furthering the genocide. Behind closed doors, you are helping the genocide. The CIA, according to the New York goddamn Times, is helping Israel assassinate Palestinians. You have Marine Corps commanders in Israel right now helping them perpetrate this genocide. So we've been telling them to take steps to not to the genocide. Shut up. Shut your stupid face. But then on top of that, he also tried to say basically the reverse, which is, well, listen, Israel has a right to defend itself. And that's what they're defending themselves against. All those children is what they're doing. Just all this bullshit about, well, if Hamas didn't want, genocide, then don't attack. Just, it's amazing. It's amazing.
Yeah. Well, and it's kind of what we were expecting. And for Israel's response, I haven't seen like any official statements, but apparently Ben-Gvir tweeted out Haig Schmeg, which
really
is it's in line with the absolute pile of human fecal matter that person is. But this proves, because if the UN had any enforcement power, then they probably wouldn't be tweeting Haig Schmeg, right? So again, like understanding where the UN court lies in their actual ability to stop anything, because again, now they're going to take time to rule on the genocide. This is an interim ruling, but that could take years, which I mean, absolutely every single second counts. I mean, the amount of people that die just in the span of our conversation here is breathtaking. It's staggering.
Right.
So it's like the world court's going to do whatever the world court's going to do, and that's good again for international opinion and bringing more people into this movement. I think some people, in particular, in countries where decision makers can be swayed by what the World Court says, this is really important. But again, in terms of what we do on the ground, and particularly in terms of stopping commerce and hitting the places of I like to say that capitalism is colonialism's or colonialism is capitalism's battering ram. So it's like, if we really want to stop this from happening, we have to hit them where it hurts. And we see the same thing happening right now with regards to Yemen. So it's like, we need to do whatever it was that we were going to do, regardless of what the World Court is doing. And then the World Court can, do its shit in the houses of the halls of the mighty, so to speak.
So something else Israel has been doing to deal with the fact that the UN is ruling against them is murdering UN workers. And they have now claimed, in their latest thing is to claim, Israel is claiming that UN workers helped Hamas on October 7th. The State Department, according to MSNBC, the State Department said today that the U.S. was extremely troubled by allegations that 12 employees from the UN Agency for Palestinian Refugees were involved in the October 7th attack on Israel, and they've temporarily paused funding. Well, first of all, Israel is a genocidal, lying psychopath right now. So really, would you believe anything that comes out of Israel? I mean, this is so ridiculous. But then on top of that, they are murdering UN employees daily. And these are not, it's not like they know, oh, that UN employee was definitely involved in the October 7th. No, they're just murdering UN employees. They're bombing UN refugee sites. So as if it would matter, even if there was a UN employee, like it's so dumb. It's like, even if there were UN employees, you still don't get to bomb the other UN employees and you don't get to commit genocide. It's just garbage.
Yeah. And I mean, I kind of feel like it feels to me almost like Israel is doing that thing like that some writers do, where they write a main character and then they try to make them progressively more and more awful to see if you're still going to be on their side. And let's be clear, like the US doesn't care if Israel is morally bankrupt. I mean, they created a morally bankrupt colonialist state on purpose, but the US cares about money and they care about their control, their ability to maintain hegemony in the Middle East. And so at some point, I just can't help but feel like the US is going to say, this is like this is not necessarily too far, but like it's too obvious. Like, don't go after the UN people, like, because again, like the US really cares about its ability to maintain control in the Middle East. And so if Israel starts making that tenuous or starts detracting from that, then the US has no reasons to stick by them. I mean, besides the fact that a bunch of Christian Zionists in the US want to go to the end days and make out with Jesus. I don't know, like whatever their plan. I have no idea.
Make out with Jesus. Would that be what the real actual
well, it's the
writing was?
Coming. I'm just saying.
It was, if you get all the Jews to Israel, the end times will come, they'll burn in hell, and you'll get to have some very interesting multi-hole sex with Jesus.
I mean, they're all really sexually repressed, aren't they?
That's true. So while the Biden administration, at least partially, is saying, oh, we agree with the ICJ, Israel should minimize civilian casualties, absolutely, in this genocide they're perpetrating. As they're saying that, here's what's going on behind closed doors. And by the way, this is from an Israeli propaganda outlet, but this is true.
They would have no reason to lie.
They have no reason to lie about this. Israel is advancing deals with the U.S. to purchase fighter jets. And some people have been reporting that the purchase has actually been finalized. It's actually close to finalized. So apparently the purchase of these fighter jets by Israel has not 100% happened, but basically all the paperwork's done. It's ready to go. And oh, my highlighting's gone. But anyway, defense sources told the Times of Israel later Thursday that Israel's plans to procure a new squadron of 25 F-35 fighter jets, 25 F-151 fighter jets, the Israeli variant of the F-15, and a squadron of 12 Apache helicopters were advanced in discussions. This is like yesterday. Yesterday, Israel, in discussions with the U.S. behind closed doors, is furthering their purchase of F-35 fighter jets to commit this genocide. That's what goes on behind closed doors. While the Biden administration tells us we think they should minimize.
Well, this is what the U.S. does, right? The U.S. during the ongoing genocide in Yemen, the U.S. kept talking about like how important human rights were and everything like that. And meanwhile, Saudi Arabia could not have done what it did in Yemen were it not for the very, very tactile and like very clear-cut support of the United States.
Yeah.
And this is just the continuation of that.
Yeah. Same idea. U.S. speaks against something, meanwhile, totally pivotal to the continued atrocities. Anyway, on the note of this genocide and Biden and his administration perpetrating it with Israel, I mean, in many ways, Israel is just acting as the firing squad of the U.S. But we like to highlight protesters getting in the face of politicians because they don't generally get highlighted on your mainstream media. So here's just a few seconds of, apparently this was an event the Biden administration was throwing for Biden staff, for like White House staff, to like thank them and celebrate them or whatever. And they were met with protesters outside of it demanding they quit their jobs, which is what they should do.
So who are these people?
This is Biden's staff going into a celebration event for themselves, and these are protesters saying, "Quit your jobs, don't be part of a genocide." This is in
I
DC.
know one of those people. Anyway,
You probably do. This is in DC. Anyway, for those of you listening to the podcast, it's pretty much exactly what you think it is. it's these people in nice suits going into their little thank you event. While protesters outside
these
are
are
saying,
the ones who obviously didn't quit because they
some quit.
Some quit.
But anyway, I just love to highlight those getting in the face of the people helping.
Yeah, no, they should
should
be made very uncomfortable. Absolutely.
Do you want to look at the Israel apologism bingo card?
What is that?
Okay, this is the Israel apologism. I like that word jism in it. Bingo card. Basically, when you're arguing with genocide apologism, when you're arguing with someone and they're trying to justify Israel's genocide, you just check off which one of these little boxes they want to.
Britain said it's our clay. Oh my god, that's so funny.
And again, for you, those of you listening to the podcast, they make rockets from pipes.
What does that even mean?
They're using human shields. Russia is worse.
At what?
Meaning Russia's causing more harm, which they're not.
Where?
In Ukraine, I guess.
Oh.
Why are you not getting this?
What? I wasn't sure if they were like stealing I was like, I don't understand.
We drop leaflets to warn them we're going to bomb.
Free space? Is that like a mention of Lebensraum? Because I've made that connection.
I have no idea what you're talking about, but this is just a bingo cards have a free space in the middle usually, I think.
Oh. Okay, why do you know? Are you like an 80-year-old fucking...
Have you never seen a bingo card?
I just don't. But no, I've made this connection where so Lebensraum is it literally means living space or like living room. And this was the argument that the Germans made as to why they kept invading countries. And before they were like, look, we're a superior race and we need some elbow room. And this is like legit the same argument that Israel has made, that they need more space. That's why they're pushing people out of like the West Bank and stuff like that. Oh, we just need more space for all of our colonialist genocidal machinations, and like legit just taking a page out of the Nazi handbook. I thought that's what that was, but apparently it's just because I don't understand bingo. So. Okay, cool.
But I like your connection better.
My connection was more intellectual. Bingo can suck it.
All right, we got a lot of more topics coming up, including a surprise topic for you. You're gonna love about NATO. Anyway, please hit subscribe. Please hit thumbs up. If you're watching this right now, we had 20 to 30,000 people watch the last episode. A tiny fraction of you take the time to actually click the subscribe and the bell icon, but it would be awesome if you could. We just got over 55,000 on YouTube, over 70,000 on Rumble. Please make sure you do that because we are incredibly suppressed, and it really comes down to you and whether you are willing to help get this message out there. What's wrong?
I read
you read the lower third. Every once in a while, randomly while I'm talking, Eleanor will read one of the ticker jokes.
Well, because I'm not when you're talking when you're telling people to subscribe and stuff. I think it's very important, but I don't pay attention.
Well, now you got to tell the podcast listeners which one you read.
The school to prison pipeline is currently clogged.
Oh. Breaking news. School to prison pipeline currently clogged. Okay. Let's move on though. This is one for you. Turkey has formally ratified Sweden's NATO membership.
Yeah.
Formally. For those of you who don't know, there was a long time threat by Turkey that they were not going to approve Sweden into NATO. NATO, of course, being a war-making body that has destroyed societies and killed millions of people, either directly or indirectly. And Sweden wants to be a part of it. And, it's partially your home country. So,
and a lot of the heads of NATO at the beginning of NATO were actual Nazis. Like not just like bad right wingers, like legit had served in the Third Reich.
This
So.
kind of connection to the Left Behind units, as they were called, or Operation Gladio, where the CIA and MI6 left behind arms and operational abilities for essentially far right supremacist Nazi type fellas to fight against any communists or lefties that happen to come to power. So, and guess what they did? Anyway, let's move on to the America's tremendous and excellent capital punishment system.
So, also, I'd just like to say happy Tu B'Shvat, which is the Jewish New Year of the trees. And that does not have to do with capital punishment. I was reminded of it for a second. But
for those who are new to our show, Ellen and I are both atheists by choice, Jewish by birth and culture, and so we.
And so this is a great time to just remind folks of. There have been a couple of people that have been talking about the the beautiful olive groves in Palestine and how they have been horrifically destroyed by the settler colonialist entity of Israel. And so whether or not you're Jewish or like you dabble in that shit, now would be a good time, because Tu B'Shvat is the New Year of the Trees, a good time to recognize the confluence of ecocide and genocide, and recognizing that murdering and starving and torturing the people of Palestine goes hand in hand with torturing and oppressing the land and the water. And so just wanted to
all good points. All good points. And Israel, this is well before October 7th. Many of the Israeli settlers and Israeli government have been shown to constantly go, and they don't just cut down the olive groves because they can grow back, but they'll go in and they'll bore a hole in the middle of the tree and fill it with cement or other types of toxins to make sure that the tree cannot grow back.
Yeah.
That's how they're respecting the environment.
Because they're indigenous to land, right? And when you're indigenous to land, you really respect it, right? Which is what Israel is doing, right? Anyway, on exactly. That note, so getting to another horrible settler colonialist project known as the United States, we're gassing people. Wow, there's just like a lot of connections to Nazis, I feel like, we're talking about here. NATO and Israel, and now just full-on gassing people. So this happened, I believe, was it yesterday? Or I can't recall exactly. It was this week. It was set to be this week. But so not exactly
they executed him yesterday.
Okay. Thursday. So basically this article is from a scientific magazine. I'm also pulling from from Jurist, which is a legal news and commentary, where someone published an op-ed last September talking about like what they're basically going to do. And so just a trigger warning, because I'm going to talk a little bit about what they did and what this plan is. A mask will be placed and adjusted on the condemned prisoner's face, and never before has this method of execution been used. And the question then is how successful or how effective the executioners are at affixing the new gas mask, because any kind of leakage will prolong, like will make the death that much more torturous, right? Because you're getting leakage of the gas. Even before considering the horror, the gasping and choking for an extended, intolerable period of time, as well as the grievous dangers to all present should the mask not be properly affixed before nitrogen is introduced, it's useful to pause and recall without much effort the fact that Alabama executioners have patently and serially screwed up so many executions in recent years it's hard to keep track of them all. And literally, like, this is a jurist website, so they're not known to be hyperbolic.
Right.
They literally got, in 2022, they got an F in human rights, in terms of like the use of the use of capital punishment against prisoners, and
how hoping to get that up to a D-,
right, and how cruel and unusual it is. And they have failed multiple times to actually execute people efficiently, in the sense that, like, you kill them without torturing them first. So Alabama has a long and storied history. Just recently, I'm not even talking about like way back in the slave days. Like, I'm talking about like currently.
You're not even going back to the time when they would just hang a guy and see what happened. You know, maybe it kills him quick. Maybe it pops his head off. Who knows? Let's see what happens.
So basically, their point is that this is inhumane in the best of circumstances, but Alabama has never been the best of circumstances. No offense to anybody who lives there, but it is like a series of human rights violations. And yeah, so I mean, and there's a lot in this in this article that points out how difficult it is to control these gases, and like in terms of affecting the other people there, who, like, I'm not saying that I like executioners, but I'm sure they didn't dream of becoming an executioner as a kid. And
I read an article about how that followed executioners, because they don't sign up for executioner. They have other duties, and then they end up getting put in that job. And many of them end up with crazy long-term trauma, including the other ones that maybe don't flip the switch, but they are involved in the whole process. And they all end up with this, or almost all of them end up in this, unless they're psychopaths, with this crazy trauma. And of course, none of that is considered. It's just like, yeah, it's your job. You go and put the needle in the guy, and yeah.
So this is absolutely horrifying. And I have not seen reports on what happened specifically yesterday, but this is considered to be a method that is A-okay. And one of the reasons that, and Alabama's not the only state that's shifting towards using gas, but some of the pharmaceutical companies that were doing the lethal injection drugs stopped giving them to states because of the fact that they were misusing them and essentially torturing people before they killed them. Like, the lethal injection is supposed to be a more humane way of killing someone. And there were multiple cases where people were screaming in agony for a prolonged period of time, saying that it felt like they were being burned from the inside. And like, so obviously not more humane.
So back during the Trump administration was when a lot of this happened. Multiple countries stopped shipping these chemicals to the U.S. because they realized they were being used for murdering people. And then the Trump administration said they were going to start stockpiling as much of the chemical as they could, so that they could keep killing people as the countries cut them off. And of course, the numbers are that at minimum 5% of everyone executed is like fully innocent, but that's not even counting the ones that, they murdered someone, but it was in self-defense, or it was accidental, or whatever other reason. And just the other day, I went through all of the arguments for capital punishment and explained how ridiculous every last one of those are. It is just a barbaric, stupid thing to do. And yet here we are acting like we're in the goddamn Stone Age.
Well, and I actually remember, I don't know if, I don't think he still does this, but my dad used to be brought on as an expert in discussing and in trying to shift cases from the death penalty to life in prison, based on the history of the person who was the defendant, and like the history of, like, the social history of that area as well. And so it was predominantly Black people on death row. And he was trying to make the case that, like, okay, the societal situations in which this crime was committed speak enough to say that this person does not deserve to be killed for what they did. And this is like either instances of like, you know, a cop like kills this guy's little brother or something, and then he kills the cop, and it's like,
yeah,
okay, well, you can stand there and say it's wrong to kill a cop. I don't know if I'm going to stand there and say that, but one could. But you cannot say that this happened in this random vacuum where race and class and the power hierarchy have play no role. So even in the cases where it's like very clear cut, like, yes, this person killed this other person, it's like the idea that they then deserve to die again speaks to the absolute moral bankruptcy of the United States. And of course, adding, you know, again, the point that most of the people on death row, because most of the people in prison are not white. And so this entire entity of the United States as a racist settler colonial state is very present in that microcosm.
Yeah, that's just one of the ways that capital punishment is racist. Also, the number one determinant of who gets executed is the race of the victim, because we view murdering a black person as not that big a deal, but murdering a white person is a far bigger deal in our society because white people are awesome. And so that's yet another way that this thing is racist. The capital punishment is racist, but there are multiple levels of racism going on.
And even just looking at like the numbers that aren't even counted, like the movement for missing and murdered Indigenous women and Two-Spirits, like this is we don't even have appropriate numbers on this because it's not deemed as important.
They don't
because
even keep track of
Indigenous
it.
people are just not as important as white people. So why should we even count it? You know, like it's
yeah, horrific. Okay, we are going to move on to these just recently declassified documents showing the UK government's plots to bring down famed journalist John Pilger. We're going to go through that story as well as others. That is going to be all at rumble.com/Lee Camp. It is free to watch over there, as well as my locals page. Those are the two places where this will keep live streaming. Again, completely free. So we hope you will join us over there. And we have other stories as well to bring to you. But before you go or don't go or join us or don't join us, whatever you're up to, I don't know. I don't know your life. Okay. I don't know your life. But whatever you plan on doing, please do this for us. We are suppressed. We're censored. I've been fighting for 2 years since my TV show was canceled by U.S. sanctions to try and create a sustainable model for this show and the other work that we do. So it would be amazing if you could just, and it's free, click subscribe either on YouTube or on Rumble or on both. Click subscribe or follow and click the bell icon. And maybe you're following and you still haven't clicked the bell icon, and that means you're not getting alerted to these videos. But the other thing to do is just remember that I live stream 4 days a week. One of those is almost always with Eleanor. She's the one over there. And so just show up. You don't need to be alerted. Just show up. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. Skip the middle of the week. Monday, Tuesday, because we got a hump, right? Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday. It's hump day. Monday, Tuesday, Thursday, Friday, 3 p.m. Eastern, noon Pacific. Join me. Okay. All the rest of this, and we got plenty, is at rumble.com/Lee Camp. Join us over there. Just click on the video that says ICJ ruling, blah, blah, blah. And that is the one.
blah, blah, blah.
That is the one.